Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Tonight on Our News, government closer to selecting a buyer for the Grand Lucayan Resort. Plus what the AG is saying about the age of sexual consent. And later, the message one inmate delivers to students in a new police youth forum. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper promising the Davis administration will get the best possible deal when it comes to the sale of the Grand Lucayan Hotel. This as he reiterated his claim that the government will have a single buyer selected by the end of this month. Jasmine Brown reports.
The Deputy Prime Minister says despite the fact that $200 million has been sunken into the Grand Lucayan property since it was purchased by the Minnis administration 3 years ago, the Davis administration is determined to salvage the deal.
We're learning from the mistakes of the previous administration with the last deal that was on the table. So we're going to be very, very deliberate to get a deal that is good for the economy of Grand Bahama and the people of Grand Bahama. I anticipate by the end of April, we would have determined the sole candidate that we will advance into a exclusive contract.
Cooper also says the government is seeking to complete the sale of the Grand Lucayan in a matter of weeks as top bidders have been narrowed down to 3.
Either of these offers would be, in my view, acceptable to the government, acceptable to the Bahamian people. We are at the moment engaged with all 3 of them. We're seeking the best outcome for the Bahamian people.
The Minnis administration purchased the resort from Hong Kong conglomerate Hutchison Whampoa in August 2018 for $65 million. In March 2020, the government signed a heads of agreement with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and the ITM Group, who promised to invest more than $300 million in the redevelopment of the project and construction of a cruise port. However, the COVID-19 pandemic delayed and changed the terms of the agreement. In December, Cooper announced that the Davis-led government canceled the deal with the group and would hold a second RFP to find a new purchaser. When asked what is the ideal sale price for the Grand Bahama Hotel, Cooper declined to give figures, but he did say this.
We are going to do our best to ensure that we get the best possible outcome for the Bahamian people. You would recall that the last deal was in the region of $65 million. And all I can say is that we're going to do the best possible job for the Bahamian people.
So more than $65 million?
We're going to do the best possible job for the Bahamian people. That's all I can say at this time.
So it's more in line with what you think the property is worth?
We're going to do the best possible job to get the best possible outcome for the Bahamian people and the taxpayers.
Now, the Deputy Prime Minister continuously said the goal is to get a good deal for the Bahamian people, and he says the Davis administration is determined to do just that. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General addressing the age of consent while updating the media on a compendium of human rights bills.
If you would actually look at all of the different pieces of legislation in the country that addresses juveniles, you'll see numerous inconsistencies in ages, of what you can do as a juvenile and not do as a juvenile. So, for instance, you can get married at a certain age, but you can't go and get medical treatment by yourself at a certain age, even if you're married. Right? So these things are all inconsistencies throughout. So what we're looking to do on the juvenile side is we're looking to provide recommendations to Cabinet on all of these discrepancies throughout all the different pieces of legislation.
Pinder says he plans to bring the bills to Cabinet as early as next week, covering issues of immigration, citizenship and asylum matters, sexual assault matters, and equalizing the juvenile age. Pinder says the bills will also provide more clarity for juvenile matters.
One is to bring more understanding and equality among the different legislative pieces. That's very important. But the second part is we are advancing the framework for that, for improving that juvenile court. And as important as it is to have the legal framework, it is equally, if not more important, to be able to enforce that legal framework and do it in a timely fashion, because with juvenile matters, you want to avoid as much delay as possible.
From the crime beat, Winders Terrace off Malcolm Road turned into a crime scene Monday night, where 2 men were shot and 1 man died on the scene. Police Press Liaison Officer Superintendent Audley Peters says officers responded to the initial call that came through the police control room shortly after 9 p.m.
On their arrival at a residence, they met 2 males lying in the doorway, both of them suffering from injuries as a result of gunshot. EMS technicians visited the scene, and following their assessment, one of the males was deemed to have no signs of life, and the other was transported to the hospital where he's being attended to by the medical practitioners.
Superintendent Peters says police are already yielding results from Operation Ceasefire.
We are resolute in our efforts as we combat these incidents. Our officers are dedicated to the task, and they're committed to completing each matter with the thorough investigation that all these incidents are required.
Well, as police look to curb heightened criminal activity in local communities, a crime forum was held at a local junior school to address violence. Bethany McDermott has that.
Members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force went into the A.F. Adderley Junior High School to directly address students and staff. Police Press Liaison Officer ASP Audley Peters noted that for quite some time, schools have been the grounds for recruitment for local gangs. He said this is an effort to tackle issues in the community.
We know that crime and misbehavior is an issue that is always at the forefront of people's mind, and so we sought to seek to address this issue of school violence by putting on this forum, having speakers come in who would have experienced what the students might be experiencing or potentially maybe having to experience, so that they can be exposed to the information and have the power to make the right decision when the time comes.
The forum comes 2 weeks after a male student was stabbed on the school's campus. A 13-year-old boy was charged with attempted murder in relations to this incident. The 9th graders heard from Ronald Simmons, who has been imprisoned for 20 years and is serving a life sentence for killing a police officer. He stressed the importance of conflict resolution.
You have to learn to control your anger. If you don't learn to control your anger, if you don't learn how to resolve conflicts without violence, you will hinder your progress.
According to school officials, among 9th and 7th grade students are where they see the most school violence. Simmons' sentiments on conflict resolution were echoed by Inspector Mikkel Pinder from the National Crime Prevention Office.
If we keep this up, honestly, who is going to lead us? Who is going to lead us in this country that we call the Bahamas? If all we do is fight, if no one can honestly say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this and I'm going to live, who is going to lead us? Who is going to be our next Prime Minister?
Reporting for our news, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Partly sunny skies in parts of the Bahamas today. Meteorologist Greg Thompson has the latest from the Weather Center. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome, Bahamas, for our first look at weather tonight. Very nice conditions outside. Clear skies. Temperatures a little on the warm side, though, 80 degrees. Winds out of the southeast at 12 miles per hour, and it is pumping in that warm tropical air mass, and your feels like temperature also in the 80s. Satellite-wise, quiet around the islands. Lots of blue skies. Warm temperatures managed to get up into the mid-80s, and really wasn't any rainfall in the forecast. But our high-pressure system will slide out towards the east slowly, but will keep us pretty much dry for tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, staying COVID-19 ready, the health minister petitions the finance ministry for funding, and later the Bahamas Games are back. That's coming up in sports when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5".
The issue of Crown land taking center stage today, with dozens of protesters picketing outside the office of the Prime Minister. Our Sasha Lightbourne was there.
Nearly 100 people protesting in front of the office of the Prime Minister today against what they say is the legal Bahamian right to Crown land. The group says illegal migrants are also burning down forests in southern New Providence. Advocate Lincoln Bain says Crown land belongs to all Bahamians, and their group is willing to take this matter as far as the Privy Council.
Crown land belongs to all of the Bahamian people, but up to this time, Crown land has only been able to be really used by either politicians or their cronies or foreigners. And we are concerned that a hotel could come here and be given tens of acres, tens of thousands of acres of Crown land, sometimes hundreds of thousands of acres of Crown land. While if a Bahamian asks for 1 acre, it's a problem.
Attorney Maria Daxon sharing similar sentiments, noting former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram prepared a document explaining 3.5 million acres of Crown land are available in the Bahamas.
We have about 400 plus people in this country. Each one of us can get 400,000. Each one of us can at least get 2. You want to see, right? I am telling the Bahamian people this morning, I come to this government right now for them to allow us to get 1 acre each.
Now, Attorney General Ryan Pinder told the media this morning that these people have no right to the land. In fact, he says a cease and desist order will be drafted and released as early as next week.
We are proceeding. I have a draft cease and desist order that I'm reviewing. That will be posted to give everybody adequate notice of the intent of the government to protect its Crown land against criminal trespass. It is drafted. I have to review it. I'll go over it with the Prime Minister, and it will be posted appropriately.
Reporting for our news, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
In other news, as the COVID-19 pandemic rages on and a new variant is spreading across the globe, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville says it's vital that proper resources are in place for the continued fight against the virus. Dr. Darville says in order to ensure that happens, his ministry has petitioned the Ministry of Finance for funding.
We have to have resources. We are in budget mode as we speak, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness petitioned the Ministry of Finance to ensure that areas where there are deficiencies in resources, we are able to have the resources in order to function effectively.
Transparency regarding spending by the Minnis administration during COVID-19 has been an issue repeatedly raised by the Progressive Liberal Party when it was in opposition. In January, Financial Secretary Simon Wilson was unable to say yesterday whether a forensic investigation would be needed into COVID-19 spending by the previous administration. When asked what amount of money he thinks would be needed to shore up health resources, Dr. Darville said this.
It's very difficult, Jasper, to put a price tag on what resources would be needed in the fight against COVID. It's very difficult, but I assure you that there is sufficient funds that is available to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And the Davis-led administration, if there are shortfalls, I have the capability to go to Cabinet to meet those shortfalls. Because we all know, without having COVID under control, it's very difficult to get the economy moving.
And a group of doctors, pastors, lawyers, and medical professionals are banding together to promote an expanded protocol in the fight against COVID-19. The group, called Optimist, is looking to educate the public about preventative measures and treatment strategies to fight against the SARS-CoV-2 virus and optimize the recovery of those afflicted with the disease. A town hall meeting on Thursday at the Church of God Auditorium on Joe Farrington Road will delve deeper. World-renowned cardiologist and epidemiologist Dr. Peter McCullough explains.
I will go over the peer-reviewed published data that's emerged on the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak, COVID-19, the illness. We'll focus on vaccine safety and efficacy because I think that's actually the biggest issue on people's minds right now. And then, of course, go over the fundamentals on early treatment of COVID-19. One of the most important messages is that there probably will be some cases of COVID-19 that are in people at high risk.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news comes back from the break, meet some police officers recognized for their service, plus the $4,000 grants that will make some local research projects possible. And later, another Bahamian in Major League Baseball. The details when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5".
Hi, this is Shamika.
This is our news. Welcome back. Another Bahamian joining the Major League Baseball ranks. Meanwhile, the Bahamas games are back. Here's Marcellus Hall.
All right, thanks so much, Christina. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Good news for baseball fans and Bahamians in general. Rather than one Bahamian at the Major League level, we now have two. That's because Lucius Fox has now joined the ranks of the Washington Nationals. He'll be on their opening day roster. Good news indeed as baseball continues to grow. Let's take a look.
Well, after hitting 400 in the spring, Lucius Fox is getting his reward. The young Bahamas native has now been called up for the Washington Nationals to be a part of their opening day roster on April 7th. The move now means that Lucius will join Jazz Chisholm as one of two Major League Baseball players currently on an official roster. The country does have a number of minor league players at this time, but so far, Jazz has been the only one playing at the Major League level. That is until now. Congratulations to Lucius Fox on his call-up. We hope that he gets to stay up there for the entire season. Meanwhile, the grassroots, the official word has come out that the Bahamas games are indeed back. The announcement coming yesterday at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. On hand, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, the Honorable Mario Boleg, as well as other members of the organizing committee. According to the minister, it's great to have the Bahamas games back once again.
Well, it's definitely needed. It's been missing. I know most of the sports enthusiastic persons were very interested in seeing it coming back. I know from we got in the office, I was asked the question, will it be back? Prior to us coming in office, our intent was to bring it back. So it's back here now, and we just want the athletes to prepare themselves and get ready for the fun-filled days that will happen next year around the week of the July 6th to the 14th.
And finally, the Grassroots Basketball League wrapping up its season this past weekend at one of our local basketball courts. The league, which ran for a number of weeks, was well participated in by age groups from all across the board, and starting with the youth division all the way up to the 18 and unders. The league had its fanfare night on Saturday, as we mentioned, and they're already looking forward to next year's season.
And that's indeed your look at sports on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Marcellus. Ahead on our news, meet the new Wilson Awards recipients, plus find out the awards for dozens of police officers. And meteorologist Greg Thompson is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast. That's coming up when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5".
Hi, this is Shamika.
Welcome back to our news. 4 research projects were awarded $4,000 grant each thanks to the Wilson Family Foundation. During a ceremony at the Franklin Wilson Graduate Center today, Franklin Wilson congratulated recipients, encouraging them to continue their scholarship. Dr. Nicolette Bethel was awarded for her work titled Humanity, Space, and the Bahamian Nation, and Sonia Farmer for her work Indelible Reflections on Bahamian Citizenship.
We must support these scholars
You hear the stuff what they're talking about? We must support these scholars. And God willing, through the process, there'll be innovation of thought.
My idea of humanity, space, and the Bahamian nation looks at what is termed spatial justice, how we manipulate our geography in such a way to reinforce systems of power that are ancient, and how we can maybe begin to rethink the way in which we look at our geography.
I do hope that the project Indelible will build empathy and awareness, helping us to understand that everyone deserves to belong and feel safe in the definition of Bahamian.
The Wilson Awards were established to cultivate, deepen, and support research and scholarship in the Bahamas. An independent review board is responsible for selecting the recipients of the funding. Dr. Chris Curry and Dr. Keith Tinker were joint recipients for their project March on Bahamaland, Nation Formation and the Emergence of the Modern Bahamas. Dr. Tracy Thompson also awarded for her work the Legacy of the National Committee for Positive Action.
Our focus, the study, will examine the political history of the Bahamas from the nascent proto-political organizations of the 1920s to the maturing two-party system cemented in the post-independence period.
And this grant allows me to carry out these interviews and to process them at a pace so much faster than I would have been able to do without these resources.
Some breezy days ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the details.
Thanks again, Christina. Welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. That ridge of high pressure dominating our weather with some dry conditions. Really a lot of sunshine, blue skies, no rainfall in the forecast, and that high is going to continue to dominate our weather for at least another couple of days before we do see a frontal boundary. Big storm system taking shape across the southeastern United States, affecting most of the southeastern states. We expect that tail end of that front to get in here sometime by the weekend. A couple of showers, isolated thunderstorms expected once it gets in here. But behind that, we should see some very nice conditions once again for the beginning of next week. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. We expect those winds to be out of the southeast to south at 15 knots seas, 3 to 5 feet over the ocean. Your high tide will be at 11:50 tonight for the central and southeastern islands. A more southeasterly flow at 15 knots seas to be running 3 to 5 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through next Tuesday. Warm temperatures and quiet weather expected until Saturday. Then we see another front. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Well, dozens of police officers receiving awards for their long service, faithful service, and good conduct, among others, during a special ceremony Monday afternoon.
Assistant Superintendent Eli Ariska.
National Security Minister Wayne Monroe personally thanking police officers for their service to the Bahamas and for the sometimes thankless job they do.
You put your lives on the line for what is often an ungrateful population. And you have to smile, and you have to bear it, and you have to continue to give service. That is what you do, and that is what I admire about you.
Tune in to our news later this week to learn more about some of the awardees. Well, that does it for us here at Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.